MTN SME Hub. Link to growth. Link to success. Link to the ultimate resource for business advice and insights.
Welcome back to the Big Small Business Show. In studio with us today, we've got Pravashen Naidoo. He's the founder and MD of eWaste Africa. And we're talking about the common dilemma of entrepreneurs when they have to decide on using their cash to grow the business or to do R&D, which is to keep ahead, and that trying to find that balance, especially in an industry that's growing like yours is. So I'm going to give you a couple of don'ts. Don't do R&D if the following. So I think you're in a very classic situation. So I don't think this is on you. It's all early stage industries when the industry is not mature and it's maturing. And the bad news is that the people who are the initial pioneers in the industry generally don't last. It's the guys who come afterwards that actually are the ones that do well. They learn off your back, of your learning, of your education, you educating the market. They learn from you, and then they copy that, they improve that, and then they take the market. So it's not always, but that's a high probability. So I'm just putting that in the market, in this conversation, just for you to think about. And why I'm saying that is because sometimes there's an ego state to wanting to be first to market. And sometimes it's not commercial to be that. It might be better to copy and be that second person than to be that first person. And so it might be a combination of the two, that in some areas you lead, in some areas you follow. And the thinking there is around when is R&D too expensive to do given the volumes that are available to you right now, and also where the market maturity is right now. So it's complex because you're looking at the market maturity. If it's very mature and it's growing, or it's maturing and it's growing, well, then do the R&D because you've got a big upside. If it's early, you're going to wait. It's going to be big cash flow strain on the business. You're going to wait for that market to mature, and you still have the threat of somebody else copying you in the meantime. So if there are no real significant economies of scale, don't do R&D, copy. The brutal truth question there was, is there really economies of scale? Because if they're not economies of scale, or it's minimal economies of scale, then don't do the R&D. Because you're just paying for something that's going to take much longer to actually get a return on. If it's easy to copy, don't be that guy. Don't be the first guy. Copy, or rather be the copier. And you have to take the ego out of this, because often it's about first to market. You can pat yourself on the back, but you'll always be also putting your hand out for additional funding the whole time. So you have to find that combination in an easy to copy environment. If it's quick to copy, because it's easy to copy, which is I know how you've done it, I can reverse engineer this thing quite quickly. That's one way. But if I can do that only over 2 years because of whatever the case may be, from a capital or whatever the barriers to entry may be, that might be okay if it's easy to copy, but it takes long to copy. But if it's easy to copy and it's quick to copy, then definitely don't do the R&D, because you're just doing all the education for somebody else. Then the big question for me is that if you had that money, let's say the money you're raising was 20 million rand. I'm just using a number, right? And you could say, if I could take that 20 million rand, and I'm going to use the word exploit in a positive way, exploit what I have right now, so that I get the commercial upside of what I've already built, and see this market through, and start to make those economies of scale, and start to make the margins in what I have. In other words, focus and use that 20 million rand there versus 20 million rand into an R&D, which I'm going to wait for. If those were my choices, there's no choice for me. I choose the 20 million rand to build out what I have, and because every single year I'm going to make more money in that, right? And so you could argue that, well, that might not last long because there's another technology. Now there's solar panels. But what's stopping you from then going to copy that later, using the money you make from what you've built now and using that strategically as a copy, the cash to copy what somebody else has built on the R&D. And so you've got that dilemma about, you feel how I'm thinking about it? I'm not thinking about this in a purist way where we first to market. I'm thinking about it in a strategic way as what do I have, where's my margin coming from, and my cash flow, and how do I then use that to copy what's on somebody else's back that they've done and use that there and not waste the money, so to speak, on R&D. And once that's happening and I've got the margins, and those two, if there's an ability to have those two lines allied in some way, where it's using the same kind of infrastructure on both, the copied and your own R&D, that's the ideal place, because then it gives you enough cash to find the next big turn, which is where you're going to be maybe in 5 years' time, where there's a new bit of e-waste that comes into the market that you've anticipated, and you can really get a head start on that. So what you're hearing me say is don't run after everything. Choose what you're running after. And if you've got something, rather focus there, and then rather build up a pot of cash and a distribution network for when you want to copy, because then you get the volumes quicker, theoretically, and your head start leverages what you've had. That's really what I'm saying strategically, how to think about that. And then I've written here that the most important thing for me is to focus on researching down one or two verticals, and so for at least 5 years. So let's take solar. Okay, so solar, now, as you've said earlier, in the other technologies, the computers are more efficient today from a value of the componentry than it was 20 years ago. One would surmise that the same thing's going to happen in solar over time. So if you anticipate that and you've got a vertical down solar, then anticipate that and let your research go, try and anticipate how you're going to get better and better and dominate in that space. And so to me, it's really about choosing your fights now and choosing your verticals right now and learning when to copy and when to be the leader. And that requires a huge amount of discipline, and strategic discipline, not to be the first to market, which I understand that as an entrepreneur you want to, but sometimes what we want to do is not a good idea. So I hope I've given you some things to think about in a framework, Pravashen. And for those of you who also always want to be first to market, remember that sometimes that's not such a good thing. And also remember, if you think it, write it down and make it a reality.
The Big Small Business Show, proudly sponsored by MTN Business.